Hey everybody, first I want to thank you for all of your input on the last composting video. I have skimmed through all of the comments and the consensus generally seems to be that I need to add more nitrogen to these compost piles. That the goat manure that I was using had composted too much before I tried to use it, and essentially it wasn't putting out the heat that I needed to create the hot compost that I was really looking for. So your suggestions ranged anywhere from add some grass, to add more vegetables, to simply give it more time, to just pee on the thing. So here's what I'm doing. I'm going to take all the advice and make one big soup out of it. Here's what we're going to do. I've already gone and collected a large mass of greens. Some of this are plants that have reached their usefulness. For example, I've gone through the garden and clipped up some mustard greens that have been growing since spring and I'm ready to go ahead and do away with. I've also chopped back an okra plant that was so big I had to go get some backup. My little pruning shears weren't big enough. I had to go get the loppers to take that thing down. I'm also going to add in some tomato vines that I'm not worried about producing any more tomatoes off of this year. Some watermelons and spaghetti squash that the bugs have gotten into and things like that, as well as a good portion of grass clippings. Unfortunately, there's a good portion of my garden that was growing perhaps the best grass on my entire property. I'm also going to add in that black bag down there some very fresh chicken manure that came from my friends over at Camelot Hills. You need to go see Jason and Jenny over at their Facebook page. I'll put a link to it here on the screen. And then yes, what you think is in that little plastic jug is what is in that plastic jug, and we're going to add that to the mix as well. So here's what we're going to do. I am not a fan of trying to turn both of these by hand. I just don't have the time and effort, and I've got the big orange beast to go ahead and do the job for me. So both of these piles have been ignored for about 3 to 5 days. So I'm going to bring in the tractor, I'm going to turn this pile, get it oxygenated again, and dump it right here behind the green stuff. I'm going to water it, then I'm going to take my green stuff and add it to the top, and then I'm going to take this pile and put it on top and water it all again. So I'm going to put my nitrogen producing materials right in the middle of the pile and try to ignite that heat and keep it moist throughout the entire pile. But first, we need to chop this up a little bit. So I have an idea. We'll see how big of a disaster it turns into. Either it'll work in 10 seconds or less, or I'll be cleaning up a really big mess. So what the heck, let's try it. Well, I think we'll file that one under makes a big mess. maybe that'll answer the question for you on why I wasn't doing this before. I may have had this machine nearly a year, but I've only put 40 hours on the engine. I just don't lack the skill and finesse that would make this actually a lot better. I compacted a lot of my own compost driving over it and just didn't get the mix like I wanted to. So it'll come in time. Might as well start somewhere, and the more often I do it, the more comfortable I'll be with it, and I'll learn how to more smoothly operate the front end loader. But that's why I hadn't done it up to now. Okay, well, there it is. We mixed in the one compost pile as the base, then the greens, and then another compost pile to cover the greens. On top of the greens, I added the chicken manure and the diluted urine, and we'll just see how this goes. I'm going to kind of reset the clock, and I'm going to cover this with a tarp. We're expecting rain tomorrow, and let this sit for 4 days, just like I would if this was a brand new pile. And we'll come back in 4 days and see whether or not it's heated up. My compost thermometer is a pile of garbage. This is one I picked up from the big box hardware store last year, and you can see what's happening here. Essentially whatever I want the temperature to be, I can set it to, so that's not going to work. So when I come back in 4 days, we're just going to have to see whether or not it's steaming, whether it's heated up, the temperature's dropping after this rainstorm, so we ought to be able to get a real good feel for whether or not this is heating up. Thank you all again for all your suggestions. If you've got any advice on how better to do this other than just a lot more experience with the tractor, let me know. I'm open to hearing your suggestions. I feel like I just push the dirt around. I don't really feel like I'm actually turning it to get the air into it. So let me know what you think. Thank you all for watching. See you next time.